Hello, and welcome to a challenge video. I haven't done one of these in a while. So what I'm going to do, so I took this deck through a challenge. I ended up going 4-2, might as well just say, because you can see results up online. And I thought it was interesting enough, and it did well enough that I thought I'd make a video of the replays. I recorded each of the games and without any audio, so I'm just pretty much going to replay my games at like 500% speed and talk about what I did. But may as well do a deck tech because it's a little bit of a different deck that hasn't been seen around very frequently. So this deck originated from R&D function. So they've managed to get 4 trophies with it within like 3 days. Very strange to me how. I'm like, man, this doesn't seem like the kind of deck that would. But it's pretty much just like, well, White Weenies managed to do all right, and it's pretty much just like White Weenie, but with a bit more life gain involved, and like more interaction, more removal. It's pretty cool. So it's pretty much Orzhov gates. So it's just running all the black-white gates, plus Basilisk gate, plus a couple of heap gate, and because we're mostly white, 5 plains and swamp, so that's the mana base. And what it tries to do, it's based around Breathless Knight. So Breathless Knight's a 2 mana 3/2 flying lifelink. If a creature reanimates, if you reanimate a creature from your graveyard, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So it works very well with recommission. So it's cool with, like, you can discard Breathless Knight and then bring it back with recommission. It sees itself reanimating, so it gives itself a 1/1 counter, and the recommission gives it a 1/1 counter. So it'll come back as a 4/4 flying lifelink, which is quite hard for the new red decks to deal because they don't run Galv Blast anymore. So that's pretty sweet. And then you've got other cards to bring, like, so you've got 4 recommission and 4 unearth to try to go with this Breathless Knight to try to bring it back along with all your other creatures. And Scrapwork Mutt. Scrapwork Mutt can bring itself back with the unearth ability, so yeah, you don't need to use a recommission or an unearth. It's also, it comes back with haste, so there's sometimes where the board's just been wiped clear, and then you can bring this back with haste and Basilisk get it up to get in there for the win. So yeah, so we're running these to get the splash red for the Scrapwork Mutt to be able to unearth it. Otherwise, Sacred Cat works well in any Basilisk Gate deck. If you're running gates, you want to run Sacred Cat. It's the best thing you can do. Also good to discard with both Raffine's Informant and Scrapwork Mutt. Throbbing Inspector, it's a 1-drop that draws you a card. It's great. I love it. Play it in every deck I can. It's white. Unearth. So Unearth and Recommission are our Reanimator package. So every creature in a deck can be reanimated. Just depends on what you feel like reanimating at the time. We're running the whole hog because creatures die, you can bring them back, and especially ones that like draw you cards are pretty sweet. Well, and also you've got both. Well, we'll talk about these two. So Raffine's Informant. This is your most aggressive creature. There's so many times where you can just go like turn 2 Informant into turn 3 Informant, have 2 3/2s, back it up with a couple of cast downs, and then they're just like the great White Weenie aggro start. It's also, they're good for just discarding, let's say, Crypt Rats or Breathless Knight, and then being able to bring them back with these. You got Core Sky Fisher. It's one of the best white cards to go with Thraben Inspector. It's just hard to block, good power to toughness ratio for its cost. Yeah, can bounce Inspiring Overseer, can bounce Raffine's Informant or Scrapwork Mutt to get another draw if you need it. Can even bounce a Basilisk Gate to get another activation out of it if you really need to. So a lot of things you can do with it. Thinking of maybe cutting an Unearth for the Omen of the Dead just to get like the recursive package with this, but we'll need more games to test that out. Cast Down, you need some removal. Cast Down's the best there is in black. I'm running more on the board if I need it, but this seems to be enough. Inspiring Overseer is a one-of. They were running 4 Scrapwork Mutt and 2 Inspiring Overseers, but I wanted to add Crypt Rats, because I've been having a real good time with Crypt Rats in some other random gates decks, because you can just gate up the Crypt Rats, make it like a 5/5, and then just sweep the board for 3, kill all their creatures, the Crypt Rat survives, and then beat in. which has been pretty sweet. So, and because you've got this recommission, so you can discard it to Rafine's Informant, recommission it, then it gets a 1/1 counter, then you can just like ping for 1 all the time to sweep off all the fairies and whatnot, which I think is pretty cool. So I'm giving this a run. It seems to be going alright. Maybe the Inspiring Overseer and Scrapbook might get better, but I wanted to give it a shot. 2 Prismatic Strand, because you're running all these discard outlets and reds everywhere, so we may as well throw some of these in for free, and then the Breathless Knight. So that's your main board. Sideboard, theirs was completely different to mine. I built this for the challenge. So we've got the 4 Dust to Dust, because if you're running white, you may as well run the 4 Dust to Dust. Affinity's everywhere. The red package of more Prismatic Strands, because we've got so many discarded outlets, it's good. Lone Missionary, because we've got so many Unearth effects that just, they kill it, you bring it back. You kill it, you bring it back, etc., etc. Chainer's Edicts, because sometimes you just need more removal for like Familiars and Terror and whatnot, and Hexproof. So just 4 Edicts, it's the next best removal spell. Unmake's also pretty good, but I just couldn't find the room. Another Crypt Rats if you need to try to sweep away like elves, fairies, stuff like that, and Rotten Reunion. So I was trying to think of, I don't like running Relic, especially in a deck that uses the graveyard. I just wanted something to sort of snipe Fog and Familiars players to like stop the Ephemerate locks. And this was the best I found, because you can discard it early if you need to. Sure, they can see it there, but otherwise, no one ever runs this card except for like a couple of in Terror, so no one ever expects it. It also gives you body, which doesn't really matter, but the fact you can use it twice is the reason I wanted it. I thought about running Fairy Macabre, because you can use it when you tapped it, but it just seems so average. Like, it doesn't actually gain you anything. At least this one, it gains you a pseudo another Rotten Reunion because it has flashback. So anyway, that's the deck, and here's how I went in the challenge. Okay, so round 1, we're up against Kykas. Keep a reasonable 7 with 2 lands. Draw an untapped land, which is nice. Still choose to play the tap land, because Sacred Cat's not that great against Affinity. Draw a Scrapwork Mutt, which is nice, so we'll decide to play that. We'll discard the cat, because it's just free value in the graveyard. Play turn 3 Enforcer, which isn't great, because we don't have a removal spell. But I mean, we got blockers, and we got a Prismatic Strands in the graveyard now. I choose not to block this time, because I'd rather try to be aggressive, but I can't, because they play a 2-mana 5/6, so we'll just play the Breathless Knight and pass. They draw a pile of cards and swing in. I have to block here because that's 9 damage. I contemplate if I want to try to use the Prismatic Strands, but I need to save the Knight from a burn spell at some point, so I just block with the Mutt. Attempt to play the Angel, so now my poor Knight gets blasted, which I was prepared for because I'm just going to recommission it and make it a 4/4. Just so everyone's aware, Sacred Cat coming back does not actually activate the Breathless Knight for future reference. They play the munitions. They don't kill my 2/1, so I know it's going to die, so I might as well block with it straight away and save me 5 life. And now I've got it. So now I bring back the Scrapwork Mutt. I'll discard another cat for value, which makes my Breathless Knight up a bit more, and then I unearth the Angel to get another counter on the Breathless Knight and gain a life. Attack with everything. They choose not to block, which is interesting. I go up to 16, play a Thraben Inspector, and play a Sacred Cat, just have a pile of blockers. And then they'll ping the Flyer to make it hard to block, because they have a Shaman to kill all my grand creatures. And sack it. Kill, yeah. So, and now it's fairly obvious. I've got the Prismatic Strands in the graveyard. So, and because they're targeting my Breathless Knight, it's fairly obvious that they're going to have a Galvanic Blast to try to kill the Knight. But there's nothing I can really do, because I need to play the Strands. I won't have an untapped creature otherwise. So I may as well keep all my grand creatures and lose the Breathless Knight. And I choose not to block for some reason there, and I don't know why. I probably should have. I attack with everything because they're pretty low, and I feel like I have enough blockers to survive. So I bring back the Breathless Knight, I'm one black mana short of crit ratzing him too. I discard the thing because if I last one more turn, then I can crit rats them out. So all I got to do is hope that they don't have one mana source to be able to kill me with the munitions. But they draw a couple of cards and they manage to find a Galv Blast, which pretty much kills me from the munitions. So I take out the strands because even though it was alright that game, they have too many colorless creatures where it's just not relevant, and Crypt Rats can only really deal... I don't have enough black sources to deal with the 4/4s, so it's just not that great. Dust to Dust is what we'd need for Affinity, so a mulligan a 2 colorless land hand to a 3-lander, which is fine. So we just discard the Scrapwork Mutt because we'll be able to bring it back eventually, maybe. If not, I've got the Recommission to bring it back. Don't draw a colored mana source, so I just have to be aggressive and attack in. I choose not to use the gates this time because I want to try to find another land. Don't find it, but they're at 11, which is nice. Play a Mirror Enforcer, so they finally have a blocker. I choose to pump up the Raffine's Informant, try to get as much damage in, but I accidentally misclick and miss attack all, so I just pass my turn without attacking, which would probably come back to haunt me for some reason, but so yeah, they hit me for 4, which is strange. I feel like they should be on the defensive, but they just don't, so I decide to just play a couple of creatures, try to find another land. Find a Dust to Dust, which is nice. Attack with everything. For some reason, they block the creature that's going to die anyway instead of the 3/2, which I find strange. So now they're on 6, so they need to kill the Aspiring Overseer, because it'll just kill them with the gates. So they decide to play, Shaman and a couple of Enforcers. They kill all my Grand Creatures. But because of this Nihil Spellbomb crack and draw, and then sacking of that, I know that they don't have the Galvanic Blast in hand to be able to deal with the Overseer. Or at least they were trying to find it. So I just try to suit up the Overseer to kill him, and it does. They just concede. So that's nice. I take a little bit of time off here to not hit submit for a while. I look at how everyone's going. Decide to, just wait until there's like a minute and a half left, and then I click submit deck just to give myself a little bit of break. I feel like the sideboard was fine. This hand was pretty much like the last hand, which worked out alright, so we'll keep and see how it goes. Just play the Thraben Inspector because I want to try to hit the Breathless Knight on turn 3. But they managed to play a 5/6 on turn 3, so I had to kill that, which took away the Knight plan. Now I don't really care too much about the Knight plan. I'd rather just try to reanimate it. So I just play the Skyfisher and bring back the Thraben Inspector, try to draw some cards. So now we unearth it. So now it's a 3/3, which is a pretty decent clock, especially with all the gates I've been drawing. But there it goes again. They play a Gearseeker Serpent, which doesn't really matter because I have a removal spell. But they sack it to gain 7 life. I decide to just draw more cards. I discard the land this time because they're running low on creature removal, so I felt like the Sacred Cat's better having a second chance of bringing back rather than a land. I've got 6 lands, I don't really need any more. Decide to bring back the Scrapwork Mutt and then play the Sacred Cat Embalmed anyway, just because I'm trying to draw more creatures. So that was probably a bad move. I should have just kept the Sacred Cat. So I don't make that mistake this time and I keep the Sacred Cat. And we'll see if they bring back a... No, they just... So they've obviously got nothing if they're flashing back a Chainer's Edict. I decide to just sacrifice the cat because I can bring it back, because if they've got another Chainer's Edict, that's going to be pretty annoying. I suit up the Raffine's Informant to whack them down to 3. It allows me to play the cat as well because I had 1 mana left over. So now I've got 2 creatures and they show me their hand of 5 lands. So yeah, they really did not have nothing when they had to flashback that cast down. So sometimes you get lucky. Affinity just draws a pile. So alright, so round 2, we're up against Campo. I keep a pretty risky looking hand with no black sources and double cast down. But I've got 3 discard outlets, so it should be fine. I managed to find it with the first Raffine's Informant, which is nice. So I play the white weenie aggressive curve of double 3-2 at the start. They don't have any white sources, so this is pretty good for me. So I get to beat them down pretty quickly. So I decide to just be aggressive and do as much damage as I can while they're stumbling on colors. And play a Sacred Cat from the graveyard because I need to be able to put on more pressure. So they find the white source. They're obviously holding up Snap. So they're probably going to snap one of my 3-2s. They think about it for a while. So yeah, they return a 3-2 and play a Familiar. Which isn't great for me, but at least I got the black source now to try to kill it. Which resolves, which is nice. So that means I can attack in for 4. And I just replay the Informant to keep the pressure on. They play another Familiar and gain some life with the Cleric. I kill the Familiar and attack in, pumping up the cat to try to do as much damage as possible. They play an Archaeomancer and bring back a Snap, which lets them snap back, get to 3 mana, which all they do is play Godfarer's Faithful. So, but I rip the red source like a legend to be able to unearth the Scrapwork Mutt and kill them, because I have enough lethal threats. So Crypt Rats are good, Prismatic Strands is bad, Rotten Reunion is good to try to trick him out of the Ephemerate loops. So I just take out a Breathless Knight just because it costs 3 mana. This is a good hand, a little bit not as fast as the other one, but it's got mana and threats. So all we do is just play lands, play a Thraben Inspector, they play a Muldrifter, and I just keep up. Look at all these cast downs. So now I need to try to find a land. So play Raffine's Informant, I discard the Angel to be able to unearth it to save on mana. Still couldn't find a land. They can't find a Familiar, so they snap back the 3-2. They decide to trade with my Angel, which is nice, so I bring it back. Managed to find the land this time. Discard a Sacred Cat to make it 3-2. They just slam another Muldrifter. Discard a land, so I just tack in with the creatures that can. They decide to take it. I decide to play it moderately safe. Just play a Skyfisher, bring back the Thraben Inspector, and hold up cast down. Because I do not want that Muldrifter to Ephemerate. All they do is preordain and pass. They're actually running low on cards. Or they're trying to hold up Counterspell, I'm not entirely sure. So I'm still trying to find lands. I still can't hit them. Just attack with the flyers. They decide to take it again. Play a Breathless Knight just to add more flyers to the board. Still holding up cast down. So they snap back the Breathless Knight. I can't do anything about it. They get rid of my Sacred Catch, which doesn't really matter. I decide to cast down this Godfarer's Faithful. They decide to save it with a snap after ephemerating the Muldrifter. They block my poor Raffine's Informant very heavily. I just bring it back. So now it's a 4-3. Still can't find a Basilisk Gate. I've got to try to cast down this Muldrifter, which happens, so they draw another 2 cards. But I've kept up the Rotten Reunion just in case this happened, so that's good. The plan worked out. So we just got to keep beating down in the air. So the Muldrifter decides to trade, but not without drawing cards first and gaining a life. So we just bring back the Angel, play another Flyer, and just hope that this Air Force can outlast all these Godfarer's Faithfuls. So they managed to play the whole 4. And an Archaeomancer. They try to bring back something, but I've still got the Rotten Reunion in the graveyard to flash it back. So attack with the team. They decide to block the ground creature, and now they've got to try to stop the flyers, but all they've got is lands and a Revoke Existence. Which, Revoke Existence seems weird because I don't know what they had, so I just asked that, but it didn't answer. So, on to the next one. Alright, so round 3, I'm up against Vinny Torres. I skip recording the first turn, so I sit here for a little bit just to absorb the hand. It's a reasonable hand to keep against anything. You've got a Raffine's Informant to dig and unearth to bring stuff back. Discard outlet, like strands to discard to the Raffine's Informant. So they just do a turn 2 Ren's Resolve. They hit a Swift Spear, which is annoying because I don't have any removal spells yet. So discard the strands, which is pretty good against red. I decide to... I've got Unearth, so I don't think there's any point saving it just yet. I'd rather just get another loot, so I just let it die and take the 2 from the Swift Spear. They miss a land drop, which is relevant. I just discard a land because I've drawn too many, and I play an untapped land so I can play the Thraben Inspector that turn. They kill the Thraben Inspector. I decided to save it this time because I want it to bring back with the Skyfisher. And because they've cast 2 spells, it makes the Swift Spear worse. So they've got the Lava Dart in the graveyard that I've got to be aware of. I draw a Plains, which is nice. That means I could Skyfisher and Thraben Inspector the same turn. They hit a Synthesizer, which is a land, which is annoying. They play an End the Festivities, which I question a little, but yeah, they've got another Lava Dart, so I don't know why they didn't like sack some lands to kill the Skyfisher and hit me for a bunch with the thing, with the Swift Spear, so I decided to chump it and then just try to dig further. I find the Crypt Rats, so I try to leverage the Crypt Rats as much as I can. So I just draw a card. I see a cast down. So do I choose to cast down one of them or try to just use Crypt Rats? They've got the Lava Dart, so I can't, I have to use the Crypt Rats in the same turn. So I just wait to see what they're going to do. I just Prismatic Strand, so this blanks a turn. Well, I still get hit for 2 for the thing, but at least I blanked a burn spell. So at least they're running low on gas. I rip a Recommission. So I've got to try to, recommission a white card to be able to Prismatic Strands, but I feel like they're going to try to flash back the Lava Dart, and then in response I can, hopefully they'd have no other instant speed interaction, and I can kill both creatures with the Crypt Rats. And if I do it this way, at least I'm taking 2, but I'm killing the 2 I would have taken from the Samurai anyway. So I feel like this is a fine trade. And then they Fire Blast me. So now they're down to only 1 land. And I'm down to 4. So that's a little rough. But I've got the removal spell for the Swift Spear, so that's fine. So I don't have to deal with that. I just have to try to deal with burn spells now. But I've got a Prismatic Strands in the graveyard. And now I've got 2 creatures in play with a gate and a pile of cards I can draw, and they just concede. So for sideboard, we bring in the Strands, we bring in the Lone Missionaries, we take out the Crypt Rats because they just do too much damage, and we take out things that die to Lava Dart. And I bring in an Edict because I feel like they're running the Thermo Alchemist version. Keep an all right hand. It's a little bit slow, but it's got a Strand, so I think it's fine. But they play an Alchemist, and an Alchemist is not good because I do not have a cast down to try to get rid of it. And so they hit 2 of the prowess pingers. They kill my creature, and now it's not looking too great. Even though I've got 2, so I've got to try to protect this, even though I know it's going to die again, and it dies with Searing Blaze, which is the worst. So now I take 5 damage. I still prevent 5 damage from the other Searing Blaze. I managed to finally draw a cast down. I kill one of them. I kill the Thermo Alchemist because it can do a damage even through creatures. But they hit a Swift Spear. And they hit 2 spells off the Reckless Impulse. They blow up one of my lands. So that means it's going to be hard for me to like hold up prismatic strands as well as like playing a creature. So I decide to like, I don't know what I should block. I feel like I need the like it to bring back with the Skyfisher to stay alive. But in the end, I need to play the prismatic strands to stay alive, so I do that. But they've got the relic there anyway, so they can just pop that, and then I'm just pretty much dead on my next turn anyway. So I finally find the one of Edict to be able to kill one of the creatures, but it's not the one I need it to kill. Find another Skyfish, which doesn't help, and I just die because I see a lightning bolt on the top. So we bring in the Edicts because we need to get rid of these Thermo Alchemists. And I just take out some random one-offs after Mulligan. A no lander to a 2 colorless lander into a pretty awkward looking 5. And they hit the turn 1 Swiss Spear, which isn't great, but hey, I draw a Sacred Cat to be able to block it this time. It dies. I take 5, and I don't hit a third land, so I decide to play the Skyfisher to bounce a land to play it, but I get punished for not playing a third land. Well, by getting raised. Because I can see them sacrificing something. So I knew that raise was coming. So yeah, I just pack it up and go home. Which, this is how red goes sometimes. Round 4, we're up against I Am MVP. They're on Orzhov Ephemerate. I just hit a nice curve of Thraben Inspector into a Raphine's Informant. I discard the Breathless Knight so I can recommission it back. Because a 4/4 is pretty good against Ephemerate. They kill my 3/2, which is a little annoying. And I get punished because they exile my Breathless Knight. So I can't recommission that now. So I just pump and swing to try to punch through as much damage as I can. I hope they stumble. Just attack in. They choose not to block. Pass turn, holding up, cast down, just in case they try to ephemerate anything. I crack the clue instead. They hit me for 2. Decide to recommission because I'm going to discard the Sacred Cat, try to find another land. I don't. Try to figure what to do. I choose not to suit up with the gate. I just play the Sacred Cat and hold up, cast down, because I'm scared of initiative creature, which they don't have because they missed the land drop, but they end up getting a land drop. I decide to suit up the cat. They have the Suffocating Fumes, which is pretty awkward. I still attack in, and I get the trade with the Thraben Inspector because they weren't expecting cast down. So now my life total is pretty average, but I managed to cast down their Vampire Sovereign when they don't have an Ephemerate up and attack in. They flood the board again with Thraben and Core Skyfisher, but I just try to suit up my Thraben Inspector, attack with both. They decide to take they kill one and then try to Ephemerate, which happens. So at this point, I'm just trying to get to a point where I can go wide enough to be able to kill them, or leverage the Crypt Rats. So they sit in the tank for a while and decide to Goliath Paladin, and then only attack with the Skyfisher. So I can kill that, I can kill the initiative creature, get back. So now they'll only be on, so now they have to block. So I get the initiative, which is great, which gets me a land. And then I can hopefully try and keep the initiative by playing this Core Skyfisher, and hopefully they don't have a removal spell. And if they don't, then I should be able to win by just holding the initiative. They've got the removal spell, but I have the Prismatic Strands in the graveyard to stop them from taking the initiative back. I choose not to go down the do 5 damage path. I'd rather try to get rid of their creatures. Try to use the Crypt Rats to kill them. So I tank for a little bit to figure out which way's the right way, but I do end up going with just the Lost Well to be able to draw some cards. So I've got to try to scrapwork up the Crypt Rats to be able to get the extra black I need to be able to hit them for 5. So I suit up the Scrapbook Mutt, they have to block it. And then I play a blocker to try to make sure they don't get the initiative back. Which they don't have, so I get to do the block. I've got the Unearth for it anyway. So the Vampire Sovereign me, so now the Crypt Rats is not that great. So now I've got to try to find another way to win. So we'll recommission. Back the Crypt Rats to sweep the board clean. After I gate it up, by the way, to make it live. To give me the chance to be able to... So I'm on 1 life. I just gotta hope they don't have a Vampire Sovereign. And I can't use the Crypt Rats to kill the all these stupid little dogs. But I got enough creatures to be able to block so they can't take the initiative back. Even though they have double removal spell. But they can't attack through because I have the lifelink to gain me enough life back. So I don't die from the 1 life. So Crypt Rat seems good. So I bring that in. I'm not entirely sure what actually to like do in this matchup. I feel like they're going to bring in like relics and bogs. So I feel like the graveyard's not that great. So I choose to just take out a Prismatic Strands because I'm not going to race. And I have to mulligan down to 4. Because I go from like some no landers to all colorless landers. And from here it just gets sort of miserable. It's mid-range, so unless you sort of punch them down quickly, you don't really stand a chance. So I do what I can with my mulligan to 4. So I pretty much just like do whatever I can aggressively. And I draw what I can, bring back, discard, attack in, do 1 damage. They are sitting with 6 cards in hand. Now they've got a relic, so my Strands is useless and most of my reanimation spells are bad. So I decide to see how much damage I can do. And I keep the land in the Scrapbook Mutt so I don't really need any lands anymore. I just need to be able to like keep hitting creatures. I find the gate, which is what I needed to start applying some actual pressure. And even though I'm like applying pressure with gates, I still need to find some action, so I discard the gate. Find a Crypt Rats, which is nice, and I've got 3 black sources, so I can try and use that later. But they just keep playing creatures that bounce, and they keep exiling my graveyard slowly, so it's all just an uphill battle at this point. I try and punch in what I can. They just chump. So at this point, I'm just trying to find enough like black sources to be able to like sweep with the rats. Try and count what I can. They swing in. I take it. Well, actually, I don't know. Prismatic Strands to try to prevent it because I knew that it was going to get exiled eventually anyway. So the goal is to try to suit up the rats and then just sweep the board clean. Which I choose not to do because I try to... I have to try to keep it around to bait out... Yeah, stuff like the initiative creatures or the Vampire Sovereign. Except they hit me with a card, like a Chainer's Edict, so I have to use it anyway, but then they play the Vampire Sovereign. So I probably should have done it before they attacked, but I need to do... So this is actually, like, I've done surprisingly well here for a mulligan to 4. But as soon as they hit the initiative, I've got nothing but lands, so... I take out the other Prismatic Strands because it wasn't doing anything, and bring in a Chainer's Edict. So I get to keep a 7. It's a little bit land heavy, but... at least it's not a 4. I'm drawing more lands. Decide to actually cast the Breathless Knight instead of discarding it because of what happened in game 1. Play the Raffine's Informant, discard the Sacred Cat, as per usual. Bring it back. Try to attack in. I trade off with the Angel because I've just got to be aggressive. I lose the poor Breathless Knight to the Relic, which is a little sad. Find a Crypt Rat, which is nice. And I get to punch them down for a decent amount of damage. So I've got the aggressive curve this time, so I'm feeling pretty good. I've got a pile of creatures and they've got none. They keep 2 mana up here for an obvious like removal spell. I only get to hit in for 2. What I really need here is a gate. So I use the Unearth while I can because they've got the like onboard Relic. So I use my graveyard as... Except they've got the Arms of Hadar, which I have not seen anyone play sideboard for quite a long time. So that sweeps my board except for the Core Skyfisher, which sets me back quite a decent way. So I just step back. So I just try to do with what I can. I just play more Skyfishers. Except they got the Vampire Sovereign to be able to stop me. So I've just got to try to draw out of it. I discard the Scrapwork Knight so I can bring it back to dig deeper. All I find is more lands. I decide to keep this one in case I draw another discard card. Except now they've got the initiative and they've got a 3/4 flyer in the road. So what I really need here is a removal spell. Find a removal spell. It's not the right one. So I just sit here, think, what can I do? I'll decide to trade off with the to try to get the initiative, but they've got the cast down, so I lose both my flyers. But I knew that if they did that, they would have to tap out, so I'd be able to use the recommission to get back this Core Skyfisher. But I can't come back from... So I decide to take this. So I finally get the gate. So I use it on the Thraben Inspector to try to get through. I forgot to realize as soon as I did put it on the Thraben Inspector that the Goliath Paladin was too big, so there wasn't actually any point putting on that. I should have put it on the Core Skyfisher, so yeah. And I lose, but it's fine. This was a pretty bad matchup anyway. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, go. Alright, so round 5, we're up against Eduardo JMP. They mulligan down to 4 cards, so that seems good for me. I keep a pretty reasonable hand of Scrapwork Mutt and Breathless Knight, so they're on Hexproof. So Hexproof does not function very well when you only have a couple of cards, unless they like drew the nuts. So I decided to discard a Breathless Knight because it's good with recommission, so I do that straight away. We'll make a 4/4 flyer, lifelinker. So we'll hope that they don't have any auras to put on their Slippery Bogle to make it bigger, and they don't. So I'll just play another Breathless Knight to be able to like unearth something to make them both pump. Attack for 4. So they've got Ancestral Mask for the Bogle to make it huge. So I decided to chump it because now I get to bring it back, put a counter on each of these Breathless Knights. Choose to discard the cat. I decide not to play anything because I'm just going to Prismatic Strands on their turn and then kill them. But they just can't race the lifelink. Then he has a little complaint down the bottom. Alright, so we bring in the Edicts because cast downs are terrible, and Prismatic Strands is great against Hexproof as well. So I forget about the cast downs, and Breathless Knight's a little slow, so I decided to cut some of them. They seem very happy that they get to keep a 7. I keep a very awkward looking, like, 4-lander with double Prismatic Strands. So they're looking at a pretty quick start here. So I just get ready to be able to like cast a Prismatic Strands next turn, and then like play a Skyfisher to be able to cast it back if I need to. So I choose not to play the Skyfisher so I can play the Strands. All they do is just play land auras and pass. So they're down to 2 cards, so they must not have any big auras in their hands to be able to put on their elf. I get to finally play a Thraben Inspector to be able to block. I make a treasure and end a turn. I've got to start stockpiling some lands. So now I get to play the Skyfish to be able to actually do some damage while still holding up Prismatic Strands. Play a land and pass. I finally hit a gate to be able to start doing some damage. Get attack in. Get them almost back to the starting life total. Still holding up Strands. They still don't find a good creature to put on their hexproof. So suit up the Core Skyfisher again, attack in, get them down to 13. So they really need to find an aura here to be able to actually get back. And then they get a little angry. And they concede. And I try to count the amount of auras that they've got in play, because they didn't draw a single aura. There was 5 land auras. I don't know what they're on about. Alright, so round 6, we're up against. They're on Blue-Black Terror. I forgot to hit record after turn 3, but all I did was just like hit turn 1 Thraben Inspector into turn 2 Raffine's Informant, discard the Breathless Knight, try to reanimate it, while they just did terror things. So now we're on to their turn 4, and all they do is just play Deep Analysis, which I find strange. So I just decide to like bring back the Breathless Knight and attack in, try to punch through a lot of damage. They hit the Snuff out, so they take as much damage as they're going to take anyway. Brainstorm, which usually means there's probably a terror not too far away if they've dug this deep. But they tank on this for quite a long time, so they must not know what to put back on top of their deck. And I'm sitting here with a Breathless Knight, which they can't snuff out, with like a couple of gate activations, so all they do is play a terror. I decide to suit up or gate up the Raffine's Informant and attack with both. They trade off the Raffine's Informant, I just bring it back, but they've got the counterspell. So now I've just got to try to rely on the Breathless Knight. So all I got to do is hope that they don't have a like Edict or removal spell, and they don't. So that's nice. So we get the win. I just bring in all the Edicts. I take out Prismatic Strands and the Crypt Rats because the creatures are too big. And we go on to game 2. So game 2, we have one of the issues of, so 1 lander, can't keep. We mulligan down to another 1 lander, can't keep that. Mulligan to another 1 lander. I decide to keep because I don't really want to go down to 3. And now we just hope and pray that we can draw another land. So we, spoiler, we don't until it's too late. So I just sit here doing what I can while they just do terror things. So swing them with the Thraben Inspector. They kill it, play a terror, so I bring it back, and then I decide to block the terror because they're going to have a removal spell eventually anyway, so I may as well try and gain 5 life. And then they play a Gomag, so now I'm dealing with 2 10 or 2 5/5s, and I just hit my second land drop, but it came into play tapped, so I just concede because I can't stop that. Keep the deck the same. Have to mulligan another 2 colorless lander into this, which is fine. So now I can Raffine's Informant, getting away the Sacred Cat, trying to find some Breathless Knights and other cool things. Well, mainly just a Basilisk Gate, that's all I really want. And we find it, which is great. So we play the Basilisk Gate, decide to just suit up straight away and get in there, do as much damage as we can early on. They snuff me out, so I can't do any more damage this turn, which is a little annoying. Decide to recommission first, resolves, so now I get a 3/2, and bring back the Sacred Cat. I'll keep the Raffine's Informant. I'd rather like not get suffocating fumes out, so because I have the untapped land, I know I can like gate and Raffine's Informant next turn if I need to, but I decide to just like play as many creatures as I can. I'd rather go wide. Discard the Unearth because a lot of my creatures are going to survive. And keep up the Clue token, which I get to sacrifice. So they finally play a creature. And here I decide to suit up the Thraben Inspector, which ends up being a poor decision because if they've got the Unexpected Fangs, then they can kill my Thraben Inspector and they gain 6 life and I lose nothing. So I decide to just not attack. So what I should have done is put it on the Raffine's Informant there because I'll still trade either way. So yeah, like curse at myself for making such a silly play. I get the second gate anyway, so now I can just like put it on the cat or the Thraben Inspector and it'll trade even if they have the unexpected fangs. So I try to put on the Sacred Cat to be able to gain some life. The Agony warped me, which is a little annoying, so I'll just play another creature instead. So I can attack in the air next turn. I believe it's lethal if they don't have a removal spell with the 2 Basilisk Gates. So they hit another 5/5. They attack him with one of them. And they play another 5/5. So I decide to test my luck and just swing with one. I probably could have suited it up, but I didn't want to like risk a cast down on it. And now I've got all these creatures I can chump with, so I should be fine. So I'll just chump with the Scrapwork Mutt. Because I'm just really scared of unexpected fangs. That's why I've been keeping up cast down this entire time. Decide to make a treasure instead of casting down because I don't want to get spell pierced. And now I've got a bucket load of mana. And a Basilisk Gate. So all I got to do is like Basilisk Gate up the flyer and see if they have a removal spell like game 1. But I decided to cast down the Angler first to be able to just attack him with more creatures. So like make him lose another 5/5 if he needs to, but didn't have the removal spell, so we got the win there. So ended up 4-2, which is pretty cool. I decided to show where I ended up, 14th. Ended up at the lowest of all the 4-2s because of my like early losses. But yeah, that is what it is. Alright, so now that I've rambled on for however long, what do I think of the deck? I'm pretty happy with it. I think like R&D Function's version of the deck is probably like the best it could be. There was just so many times where you didn't have enough like black sources for the Crypt Rats for it to be good. So their original version was, so we'll just throw some things in the sideboard. So they had 2 Overseer, 4 Scrapwork Mutt. So that was their main deck. They had a completely different sideboard. Challenges are weird beasts, so you sort of pick and choose what you're trying to go up against in challenges. So, yeah, the sideboard can change at any instant's notice. So, like, this is very solid. Like, I like the Inspiring Overseer. I like being able to discard it early to, like, a Raffine's Informant and then bring it back with either Unearth or Recommission. So that's, like, the main draw of this deck. It's, like, hitting these things turn 2 to discard either of these 2 things and then and then play another one plus bring these back. So you're just netting 2 mana for free. That's the whole goal. And then like building this thing up to like a 4/4 flying lifelinker is quite obscene. So like I'd probably just like stick with this and then figure out what you want to do. Like maybe cutting an Unearth for an Omen of the Dead could be worth it. Because there was a couple of times when, like, needed a couple more creatures against the sort of, like, Orzhov mid-range, and I played a league, and the Mono Black Gardens matchup was very grindy as well. We just need a little bit more to be able to go with it. The only problem is that, like, that loop wouldn't usually happen anyway, because they're going to bring in Graveyard Head against you, because you've got, like, 10 things that care about the graveyard. So Unearth, Recommission, and the 2 Prismatic Strands, and even Scrapwork to a minor degree, and Sacred Cat. So you'll always get Graveyard Head against you. So you just got to try to figure out like how do you want to deal with that. Like R&D Function ran Cathar Commando in the sideboard, which is pretty cool. You get to reanimate and whatnot, and that can be used to like get rid of relics if you're really scared of relic. But you shouldn't be worried too much because you should be able to like. I played against, 2 relics in that challenge there, and I got to bring back stuff all the time because they just kept, like, tapping out when they shouldn't really have needed to. So you can always find ways to do it. So yeah, maybe Crypt Rats is better just off in the board, and just sticking with the 60. Cyber was good. Chainer's Edicts is great. Probably not main deck worthy at this stage. Cast down's good enough. Like, I wouldn't mind another removal spell. Maybe we want like Fleshbag Marauder, because that works well with these. Unsure. But yeah, deck was fun. We did get a bit lucky there. There was like 2 of the game 3s the opponent flooded. And the poor Hexproof guy didn't draw anything, so... But as long as you're got an aggressive curve, you can punish anything. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this very interesting deck. Should be something different that you haven't seen before. And yeah, hopefully that shows you that the 4-2 challenge one wasn't a fluke. Yeah, and don't know how to do post commentaries that well. I did ramble, like, I didn't want to like linger on things too much. Like, the 400% speed might be a bit too quick, but let me know in the comments if you think, or if you enjoyed it or not, and I'll see if I can do some more. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.